As the video above mentioned, St. Augustine wrote the City of God at least in part as a defense of Christianity against pagans who believed that the sack of Rome in 410 AD was due to the Christian faith of the Roman emperors. Augustine's book is lengthy, covering a number of subjects, and in this video I just want to give a general overview of the text as a whole, and then a slightly more detailed summary of Book 19, excerpts of which we'll be reading this module. The City of God consists of 22 books here, which are divided into 5 sections I've got listed right here. Books 1 to 5 respond to objections raised by pagans against political aspects of Christianity, while in books 6 to 10 he responds to objections against Christianity's philosophical and religious aspects. In books 11 to 14, Augustine discusses the origins of those two cities to which all mankind belong, namely the earthly city and the City of God. More on that later. In books 15 through 18, Augustine discusses the histories of those two cities, and in books 19 to 22, he discusses their distinct ends. We're going to read book 19, at least in part, because it nicely reflects Augustine's view of human nature and the political implications of that view. And this will let us draw some sharp contrasts between ancient Greek conceptions of human nature and those of medieval Christianity. So let's turn now to a brief summary of Book 19. Book 19 has 28 chapters. The arrangement of the topics in these chapters can really only be understood when we take into consideration what Augustine says in chapter 1 about a guy named Varro. He's depicted right here. Now, Varro was born in 116 BC, several centuries before Augustine, and he died in 27 BC. He was a Roman scholar who lived in the time of Caesar and Augustus, and he wrote a number of books, one of which we no longer have, but is quite relevant here, called De Philosophia, on philosophy. In that book, Varro discusses a number of philosophical views or sects that existed in antiquity. And these sects are differentiated by how they answer the following 6 questions, which I've got listed right here. Let me bring them over so they're more visible. Let's just look at these questions really quickly. So the first question, what do we men desire by nature? Do we desire, do we seek pleasure, rest, both pleasure and rest? Do we seek instead what Augustine calls the primary objects of nature, so things like food and shelter and so on? Secondly, do we desire virtue for the sake of these things, or do we desire them for the sake of virtue, or do we desire both of them for their own sakes? Thirdly, do we pursue all this for our own sake or for the sake of our fellow men too? So this third question concerns the sociality of the good life. Fourthly, are these views to be adopted as certain or probable? So question 4 has to do with the certainty of our beliefs about the good life. Question 5 is a bit strange. It has to do with what our appropriate dress and manners should be when living this good life. And question 6 has to do with our political engagement. So does this good life involve only leisure, or does it also require political engagement? And a number of these issues, as you might remember here, were already raised by Plato and Aristotle. In any case, these questions are addressed systematically by Augustine in the subsequent chapters of Book 19. So, for example, he tries to address questions 1 and 2 in chapter 4. So this happens in chapter 4. He devotes chapters 5 through 17 to answering question 3. So this is chapters 5 through 17. Sorry for the handwriting here. Question 4 he addresses in chapter 19. Chapter 19. And questions 5 and 6 he discusses, this is in chapter 18, I misspoke. And questions 5 and 6 Augustine deals with in chapters 19. So when you look at the text, I think you'll find that these questions are addressed in each of these chapters, and that's why it's arranged in the following way. And that leaves the subsequent chapters for a different topic altogether, in which Augustine offers his own account of what a political community, or what he calls a commonwealth, truly is, and how this view in fact differs from those of the ancient Greeks. Okay, in the next video I want to go more deeply into chapter 4. For there Augustine really clearly rejects Varro's entire line of thinking, and he sets the stage for an alternative notion of the city, not a city on earth, but a city of God, which is the city to which humans, as creatures of God, were at least intended to belong.